This video is brought to you by channel partner 4 years running Squarespace. They just refreshed their already industry-leading website creation toolset, making it easier than ever before to build the perfect website for your business, your project, or just for fun. They're offering a special discount to viewers of this channel, so stick around to the end of the video to learn more. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. What a delightful little game. Calling it little is a bit unfair though. This is a surprisingly chunky offering that starts out feeling like it'll be over in a brief trot, but eventually unfurls into the sort of sprawling Hyrule hopping saga that Zelda fans have come to expect. Echoes of Wisdom is the first Zelda game to feature the titular character in the leading role. No longer waiting to be saved by Link, Zelda is the one doing the saving. It's an inversion of the formula that is matched by an inversion in the core gameplay. Up until recently, Link's primary means of interacting with Hyrule was through destruction. Link destroys shrubbery, moblins, skulltulas, giant spiders, Poes, you name it. Sword in hand, Link destroys things in the name of his righteous cause. One of the things that made Tears of the Kingdom so compelling was that in addition to destroying things, Link could also create. The Ultra Hand build system let him fashion fabulous contraptions using either what he found or what he conjured from thin air. It was so flexible a system that no other developer dare attempt it, as the number of variables that introduced to both combat and exploration seemed innumerable, impossible for Nintendo to fully account for in their testing, and yet somehow they did, and Tears of the Kingdom earns its masterpiece status on the back of Link's newfound ability to conjure and build. A more flexible and creative sandbox was clearly on Aonuma-san's mind when he and Nintendo greenlit Echoes of Wisdom, a title developed in partnership with Studio Grezzo, who made that Link's Awakening game a little while ago. Echoes of Wisdom doesn't evolve the Tears of the Kingdom sandbox so much as it offers an alternative vision of it, where Tears of the Kingdom was forcing you to MacGyver together a boat using a piece of sheet metal and a palm leaf. Echoes of Wisdom is more focused on giving you ready-made implements that all might get the job done. Tears of the Kingdom basically said, cut down a tree and build a battering ram to get through this door, whereas Echoes of Wisdom hands you a set of keys and says, see which one of these might fit. This core premise truly shines here, delivering a unique, puzzle-based Zelda experience unlike any before it. However, the elements around that are a lot less interesting and ambitious. Combat, structure, world building, narrative, characters, tone, it's all pretty familiar and safe, and I would have loved to have seen Echoes of Wisdom swing for the fences a little more than it did. But that didn't stop me from enjoying the adventuring and the conjuring and the puzzle solving. This game is heavily leveraged into really clever puzzles, and in that regard the game never falters. Nintendo have delivered us a new spin on the creation-based sandbox that made Tears of the Kingdom so compelling, and at the end of the Switch's life cycle, Echoes of Wisdom serves as a pleasant and relaxing encore as we farewell this generation and prepare for the next. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom begins as almost every Zelda game does. A malevolent force attacks Hyrule Castle, again. Zelda is imperiled, again. And Link arrives to save the day, again. Only this time, he isn't successful. And as he fades from view, Zelda comes into focus. With Link out of action, it's, for the first time ever, up to Zelda to save the day. It's not just her though, she's got her own little Navi-esque companion called Tri, only Tri is not a fairy, they're a magic blob thingy, bestowing upon Zelda the power to conjure things from thin air. There are some rules of course, she can only summon something after she's encountered it or defeated it, and each conjuration has a power budget associated to it, such that you can only summon a certain number of things at a time. So for example, early on you learn how to summon a rock. Rocks are helpful because they're a little elevated, meaning you can stand on them to reach slightly higher places. You can also pick them up and throw them at your enemies, making the rock your first offensive conjuration before you learn how to summon actual enemy minions. More on that later. Another example is the ability to summon a bed. Not particularly exciting, but believe me, beds go hard in Echoes of Wisdom because they are your best means of building bridges over gaps. You're going to be summoning a lot of beds, trust me. And it honestly never stops being at least a little bit funny that you are so reliant on a piece of furniture to get basically anywhere. When I first started playing Echoes of Wisdom and I started building up a decent library of things I could conjure, I was like, I think the menus are gonna kill this thing. Because yeah, there's no ability to shortcut specific conjurations or whatever. Every time you want to summon a different conjuration to the one you last conjured, you need to hit the D-pad to bring up the menu, scroll across to the desired item, and then release the D-pad to set it as your next conjuration, and then cast it. That sounds kind of annoying, right?
Well, yeah, like it is a little, but the honest truth is that the menu experience is really snappy and responsive, and there are different ways to sort out your conjurations so that you can get to them really quickly. The one you'll use most often is the recently used filter, and since most sections you're exploring will ask you to use specific conjurations repeatedly, this definitely streamlines things. It's also really quick to unconjure a specific conjuration or all of them at once. It's very well thought out and on the whole remarkably seamless. With a system like this, there was every chance it could have been bogged down by a poor UI, but in typical Nintendo fashion, they nailed it, allowing the depth and complexity of this system to be an ally rather than a hindrance. Because make no mistake, this is a very sophisticated sandbox that Nintendo have built here. One of the similarities between Tears of the Kingdom and Echoes of Wisdom is that I expect this conjuration system here in Echoes will suffer a similar fate to that of Ultra Hand. Its mind-boggling complexity and flawless execution under-recognized due to how seamless and intuitive all of it is. What makes it so clever is that when you really start engaging with this system and you see how many things you can conjure and how unique their functionality is and how they can be combined with other things, you feel so powerful, as though every puzzle or combat challenge you face should be really trivial. But then you actually get to the combat challenge or puzzle and you're like, that wasn't so easy after all. Nintendo have precisely tuned the placement of every object, every ledge, every gap, every enemy to account for all of the conjures you'd likely have at that precise moment. And so what could seem like a really easy puzzle, like get across this gap, actually becomes more tricky than you first thought because the goddamn beds are just a few inches too short. But with a bit of experimentation, trying some new things in some new spots or in some new ways, the solution presents itself. And a lot of the time you end up learning new ways to use the conjurations you've already unlocked, while also adopting an increasingly more experimental mindset when solving these puzzles. An added layer of brilliance to all of this is that there's rarely one solution to any puzzle, especially later in the game when your arsenal of conjuration grows. The options aren't quite as numerous as they are in Tears of the Kingdom, where the building system and physics engine could be combined in seemingly endless ways, but there are often 2, 3, sometimes 4 ways you could tackle a given problem in Echoes, and that's enough for the puzzles to feel really interesting and for the game to feel like an immersive sim in its own way. I will say though that again, similar to Tears of the Kingdom, playing Echoes of Wisdom can feel a little finicky. Its puzzles are intuitive, there are multiple solutions to them, and the menu system is as frictionless as it could reasonably be, but this is still a game where every combat and puzzle encounter begins and ends with opening your menu, with plenty of opening and closing going on in the intervening period too. If you want the simple, cathartic pleasure of jumping on a Goomba's head or sword swiping a moblin, Echoes of Wisdom is not for you. But if you're all interested in a clever puzzle game with some very simple third-person real-time strategy stuff thrown in, then I think you're going to get a real kick out of this. It's a concoction that I thoroughly enjoyed, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hoping for a little more from it. Combat is a good example of where Echoes of Wisdom falls a little short. Now, to be clear, I wasn't going into this expecting a hack and slash action game. I was expecting a puzzle-focused experience. I knew that combat would mainly be about conjuring the minions you'd previously defeated to fight alongside you, and that's exactly what I got, and nothing else. Where the puzzle side of the game is often surprising you as it adds new objects to conjure that make puzzle solving more interesting, the combat side of the game never really evolves. It's just conjuring one or more minion that you know either counters or goes toe to toe with an enemy, and then just letting them fight it out. It's never particularly interesting because there are no limitations or cooldowns on your ability to reconjure a minion when they die. The puzzles you have to solve are very much defined by their tight tuning that forces you to use your conjuration power budget smartly, but when it's time to throw down, you can just spam bats over and over again until the armored knight is dead. It honestly is as simple as that. The only way Nintendo thought to spice this up a little is with the addition of a sword mode. Zelda accumulates energy when she defeats foes, and with the press of a button, Zelda raises the hero's sword above her head and transforms into, well, basically Link. A sword, a shield, a bow, hold down the attack button to do a little spin, all the classics. This is actually the main mechanic to deal damage to bosses, and honestly, it's kind of a bummer. Like, Zelda is fronting her own game. She's got these sick-ass magic powers that let her conjure all this cool shit, but in the game's biggest and most climactic moments, you transform back into Link to do the same shit we've been doing for nearly 40 years now. And to be clear, I've got no problem doing that 99% of the time, But this game was that 1% where it would have been cool to see Nintendo remix more of the traditional Legend of Zelda formula than they have here in Echoes of Wisdom. Much the same could be said of the game's overall structure, narrative, and tone. Structurally, this is very, very Legend of Zelda. There's a big map of Hyrule with Hyrule Castle at the center. There's a desert zone with the Gerudos. There's a water zone with the Zoras, etc. The ruling family in each zone is under siege in one way or another, so you have to help them out before gaining access to a final regional dungeon. You know the drill. Again, nothing wrong with this. It's absolutely what I'd expect from a mainline Legend of Zelda game. But your spin-offs are your chance to get a little funky. Think back to Majora's Mask with its creepy, twisted spin on Hyrule and its Doomsday mechanic. Not since then has the Zelda franchise been as bold in remixing its core franchise tenets. And I do think that Echoes of Wisdom would have been the perfect opportunity to show us a side of this franchise that we haven't seen. The same commentary extends to Zelda herself, who feels rather indistinguishable from Link during the course of this adventure. What I mean by that is that you could take this magic rod out of Zelda's hands and put it in Link's hands, and the game would not feel any different. I'm not expecting deep character portraits when I play a Legend of Zelda game, but I would have thought that the fact that I'm playing as Zelda for the first time would naturally invite at least some exploration of who she is. Sadly, none of that world or character building is here. I'll put it this way. You know how everyone complains that Zelda has like no personality or agency in traditional Legend of Zelda games? Well, somehow she manages to have even less personality and agency here. Yes, Zelda is the hero of this Legend of Zelda game, but she still feels like a stand-in for Link, a point underscored by her literal transformation into him when it matters most. One other criticism I'll mention before we finish on a positive note is that this game does not run well, at least out in the open world areas. It's much better in internal spaces, but out in the open world, you're looking at some seriously rubbish frame rates that honestly are a bit baffling to me. Like, I trust that Nintendo know how to make video games. I trust that they know how to push every last inch of performance out of the now stale and ashen potato that is the Nintendo Switch. I played Tears of the Kingdom, a game that was not without its fair share of frame rate issues, but my god, look at that game. Look at the scale of it. Look at what you can do in it. If that game wants to chug down to 15 FPS from time to time, I say God bless, thank you for your service. But this, I just don't understand how this game isn't getting a locked, super solid frame rate. This is not a graphically ambitious game. The amount of stuff you can conjure is really capped, so it's not like that's going to throw a massive spanner in the works either. And yet the performance while roaming around is often frankly abysmal. It's made worse by the fact that Nintendo have deliberately applied a blur effect to the edges of the screen for, honestly, I don't know why, but that effect combined with the sluggish frame rate can make Echoes of Wisdom really unpleasant to look at. When I played Tears of the Kingdom, I remember thinking to myself, man, I can't wait for this to get a re-release on the Switch 2. Playing this at a solid frame rate would be sweet. I shouldn't have been thinking the same thing while playing Echoes of Wisdom, but I was, and I guess the Switch 2 really can't come soon enough. So let's finish by contextualizing my complaints about Echoes of Wisdom. Does it run badly in the open world? Yes. Is that a big deal? Not really. It's within the overall pain threshold we've all developed over the last few years while playing late-gen Switch games. Is the narrative, tone, characterization, and world building of Echoes of Wisdom a little less ambitious and interesting than I had hoped for? Yes, this is a Legend of Zelda game that happens to star Zelda rather than a Zelda game set in the Legend of Zelda franchise. For me, that's a bit of a bummer, but for many others, it likely won't be. If you love having that same legend told and retold, then Echoes of Wisdom delivers a faithful and surprisingly thorough retelling of it, with no shortage of lands to explore and royal families to rub shoulders with. Is the combat side of things a little one-dimensional? Yes, but it's still fun, and I think it serves as a nice pacing mechanism in between the real focal point of this game, the puzzles. And that is why I'm ultimately recommending Echoes of Wisdom, despite these criticisms. This is, at its core, a puzzle game, and it's a really, really good one. This conjuration system is so clever, so novel, so flexible, and so well utilized that I was always excited to reach the next destination to see which new conjurations I'd unlock and which new puzzles they'd be put to work in. The dungeons each have that classic central mechanic on which all great Zelda dungeons are built, and the process of slowly unlocking all of their secrets is endlessly satisfying because it's just room after room of really fun, really interesting puzzles. And the moment it starts to feel a little played out, you're on to the next location, which introduces entirely new conjurations, enabling entirely new puzzle mechanics. The stuff at the periphery of Echoes of Wisdom is a little weak, but the core of it is rock solid, so good that it helped me look past all of the things that I wished Echoes of Wisdom might have been, but wasn't.
The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is out now on Nintendo Switch. I recommend it to you. For nearly 5 years now, Squarespace has been a partner of this channel, and their support has been invaluable. It's let me turn my dream into a reality, because without their support back in the day, I wouldn't have had the courage to quit my job and go full-time on YouTube. Helping people achieve their dreams is kind of what Squarespace specializes in, because if you want to change careers, grow your business, kick off some new community initiative, or plan a wedding, then a website is almost always a really good place to start. For years now, Squarespace has been the very best in the website creation business. Their tools were second to none, making it super easy to create a website no matter your experience with building websites. You could be a total beginner, and Squarespace's tools would let you create a professional-looking website in mere minutes. Well, Squarespace just took things to a whole new level. Their all-new design intelligence framework leverages their 2 decades of experience in website creation to give even more tools to shape the website of your dreams. Not only can you select from and customize their super flexible design templates, but you can also now provide prompts that allow you to refine the tone of what is written on your website. Just type in what you'd like to communicate and then select what sort of tone you'd like it to have, like playful, funny, professional, etc. Squarespace will then refine your words so it sounds and reads just right. This same technology can assist in writing product descriptions, blog posts, or mail outs. It's super helpful if you're not a native English speaker or you're just looking for some inspiration for how to word things better. That's not all though. Squarespace Payments takes all the work and hassle out of managing payments on your website. It's really quick and easy to get set up with, and it gives your customers tons of ways to pay, knocking down one of the barriers that might stop you from getting a sale or a booking. Squarespace isn't just about the front-end experience though. It's also got all the back-end stuff you need to make sure your website is surfaced in search. Every Squarespace website supports sophisticated SEO tools that are just as easy to use as everything else Squarespace offers, meaning you can be sure that the customers who are looking for you can find you. There's so much more that Squarespace offers, so if you'd like to check it out for yourself, you can visit squarespace.com to try it for free. And if you want to get serious, visit squarespace.com/skillup to get 10% off your purchase of a website or a domain name. A big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.